A technician carefully brushes dust and debris from a human skull. Next to it lie tattered bits of cloth, most probably the last pieces of clothing that person ever wore. Nearby, another technician carefully assembles a human skeleton, putting it together like a jigsaw puzzle. In a corner, a forensic photographer arranges articles of clothing and takes a picture. This is the laboratory of the Guatemalan Forensic Anthropology Foundation, and it is here where thousands of families of people who disappeared during Guatemala's Civil War hope to find answers, an end to a wrenching, decades-long search for loved ones who disappeared from one day to the next. The remains of some 3,500 people found in mass graves around the country are tested and matched against DNA samples provided by the families of missing persons.
We treat every one of these bodies as if it was our family member, thinking or putting ourselves in the position that what would I expect if it happened to me? Of course. And understand.
The laboratory was founded by Freddy Pecharelli, a Guatemalan forensic anthropologist who has worked all over the world.
The base of the skull.
And who trained with Clyde Snow, the scientist who pioneered the use of DNA to identify human remains. Pecharelli returned to Guatemala in early 1992, just as Guatemala was coming out of its decades-long civil war. At first, his work revolved around finding and excavating mass graves and identifying human remains. But as time has passed, it has started to focus more around the circumstances surrounding those deaths.
We're also going into telling people's stories from the other side. In other words, we're recording life histories. We're focusing not only on what happened to people, but on the fact that they're here. So on survivor stories. And we're interested in understanding what the communities looked like before these massacres, what happened during the massacres, what happened after the massacres, and what's brought people to today. So we're involved in telling the story of Guatemala, not only the story of the terrible things that happened in Guatemala.
The laboratory operates out of a small building in the center of Guatemala City. Boxes of human remains line a hallway that leads to a small makeshift oratory, a place where families looking for disappeared loved ones can rest, reflect, gather courage after decades of searching. It is a place of hope in the middle of a heart-wrenching task. The focus here is on the science, but also on the families, on helping people find answers.
But for the families to begin the search is what's important, because it generates hope and it generates empowerment. It allows them to actually, with their own body, begin the search. Yes, that might never end, but then we're also learning a lot from these family members. I have families that come here and tell me, I can die in peace now because I can continue looking for my loved one from the other side, even though I'm dead, because my DNA sample is going to still be in the DNA database. And I'm like, that's really profound, and it's true.
Blanca Rosa Quiroa has been searching for her son and 5 other family members since 1984. Her son, a volunteer firefighter, was picked up by state security forces and taken away, suspected of being a communist organizer because he worked with disadvantaged youth in his neighborhood. She spent days visiting hospitals and the central morgue looking for him, and eventually met the families of other disappeared persons.
Circuló, ¿verdad? Eso dentro de los familiares. Y de repente, pues, de que se logra que se arme la organización, ¿verdad? Con muy pocas personas. Pero de ahí ya se llegó al acuerdo que había que sacarlo por la radio, ¿verdad? Que había que vencer un poco el terror, ¿verdad? Y que había que sacar por la radio, cuñas radiales, decimos nosotros, ¿verdad? Llamando a la gente que tuviera una persona desaparecida, que estábamos en tal dirección. Se hizo la primer misa en catedral, que fue masiva, ¿verdad? Creo que llegarían unas 3,000 personas a la misa, porque no alcanzó la iglesia y ya ve que la catedral es grande, se llenó todo el atrio de afuera. Y así fue como ya brigadas de paz estaba dando el apoyo y ellos nos dieron. De primero pues nos reuníamos en cafeterías, en comedores, pero como a veces solo una taza de café nos tomábamos y estábamos hasta 2 horas ahí, ¿verdad? Hablando, nos sacaban de las cafeterías.
33 years later, she is still searching.
Mire, paz no se encuentra, porque hay algo que yo digo, ¿verdad? Que el crimen más aberrante que puede haber sobre la faz de la tierra, aquí y en cualquier parte del mundo, es la desaparición de una persona. Porque la persona no está ni entre los vivos ni entre los muertos. Es un ciclo de vida que no terminó y un duelo que no se cierra. Porque mediante no se encuentren los restos, ese duelo no lo puede cerrar uno, ¿verdad? Y el ciclo de vida tampoco terminó porque ellos estaban sanos, no estaban enfermos, no fue un accidente. Entonces ese ciclo no terminó, ¿verdad? Como tenía que ser. Entonces, mire, hay momentos en que, tal vez no todos, ¿verdad? Pero algunos sí perdemos la esperanza, ¿verdad? En ver, porque como no sabemos exactamente, ¿verdad?, a dónde los llevaron, pero al mismo tiempo uno se fortalece, ¿verdad?
Blanca, her husband, and the son of her disappeared child all gave DNA samples to the forensic laboratory. None of her disappeared family members have been identified, but she says that just by having her DNA sample in the laboratory's registry has given her a semblance of peace.
Ahora hay un adelanto más grande, ¿verdad?, que es con la cuestión del ADN, porque digo yo, bueno, yo también ya estoy bastante más para allá, ¿verdad?, que para acá. Fue mi esposo, fui yo y mis 3 hijos. Llego a faltar yo, llega a faltar mi esposo, están sus hermanos y está su hijo. Hay esperanza, ¿verdad?, de que si llegaran a aparecer, ¿cómo se llama?, los restos de él, hay con quien puedan identificarlo plenamente y saber, ¿verdad?, que lo van a ir a enterrar.
One of the things that makes us human is how we treat our dead. Funerary practices go back to what makes us human, right? The way we treat our dead, the way we communicate with our dead, the way we revere and respect and send our dead off. We have a connection with the dead. We have in the case of the Maya, the dead are part of the living world. They're advisors. And when you don't respect the funerary practices or don't know where that person is, you break that bond. You lose your advisors through life. It's important in every sense. It's important in understanding who we are, in knowing the truth of where the person is and what happened. It's important so it doesn't happen again. It's important to try to understand why it happened.
But it is understanding what happened during those years of war in Guatemala that is also crucial in the work of the anthropologists.
And then in education, we're trying to bring this to the current day, to the future, by making sure that the kids understand that this is their country, that this happened here, that this needs to be acknowledged, and that we need to move on, but that there's a lot of people in Guatemala still looking for the loved ones. So it's basically coming to terms with ourselves and coming to terms with the country, understanding that we are forensic experts, but that we're also Guatemalans, and that we also need to evolve.
Rosalina Tuyuk agrees with the need to educate people about what happened in Guatemala decades ago. She heads the National Association of Widows, a group of 10,000 women who lost husbands during the Civil War. She too supports them in trying to find their remains. Her own father and husband disappeared in the late 1980s and have never been found.
Pues no están ni entre los vivos ni entre los muertos. Y el duelo pues sigue ahí, no está cerrado. Siempre para muchas familias que deseamos encontrar a nuestros familiares en cada cementerio clandestino. Cuando se abre una fosa, se abre una esperanza, y cuando se cierra la fosa, se cierra otra vez la esperanza. Entonces, ese es el proceso que llevamos miles y miles de mujeres, aunque las estadísticas nos dicen pues que son 45,000 desaparecidos. para nosotros hemos, según todos los diagnósticos, encuestas, historias que se ha comentado en las comunidades, calculamos que alrededor de más de 60,000 desaparecidos. Porque para muchas familias dicen mejor dejarlo en manos de Dios y no han hablado, pues.
She says every time a body is identified through the DNA processes is good, not only for the family members, but for the process of ensuring the truth about what happened gets out.
La historia no se borró completamente, sino seguirá siempre hablando. Ahora ya las osamentas hablan ya los lugares donde quedó de alguna manera una memoria, un nombre, una historia, y pienso que eso no borra todo lo que pasó. Obviamente los que cometieron todas esas graves violaciones a los derechos humanos quisieron borrar esa memoria, pero pienso que no lo lograron, porque hoy siguen hablando los cementerios clandestinos, siguen hablando las osamentas, y diríamos que esa justicia moral ya se está dando.
Despite the fact that several former military officers have been tried and sentenced for war crimes in Guatemala, many others have not been prosecuted. But the people of the forensics laboratory feel, in a sense, they are helping the country move on.
Having new generations grow up without the full history of how we got here today is a big mistake. And every society should know where they come from and where they're going, right? And whether we agree or not agree and why it happened and who's responsible, the fact is that it did happen. And if we deal with it, and if we give these civilians, most of them, these Guatemalans, the support they deserve, then maybe, that only maybe, we can move on to other bigger, better things together.
Those silenced in the past are still talking, helping an entire society come to terms with a dark history.